There's a framework for system design thinking, and this framework is called the DASER framework, right? Number one is define what the problem is. Number two is analyze the constraints. Number three is sketch the system. Number four is evaluate what the trade-offs are. And number five is refine for scale. So let's think about it in this way. Because what I'm trying to do is create a structured methodological approach to system design. How do we guide ourselves through all the different considerations from what the initial problem is to what that scalable solution will be, right? So the first thing we are going to do with this framework is we're going to define the problem, right? So the first question is, what is the fundamental challenge that we're trying to address, right? So we're going to define what the problem is. We're going to clarify what the functional and non-functional requirements are and what the stakeholders' expectations are. Once we can do these three things, right, we have defined the problem. And then we move on to analyze the different constraints that we have. Now, in terms of analyzing different constraints, here is what comes into place. You identify your technical limitations. You identify what your budget restrictions are. You look at the timeline pressures. What are the regulatory demands that would shape this design? Give examples. If you identify your technical limitations, what are your technical limitations, right? Some of your technical limitations could be who is on my team. The people on my team are C# or .NET developers. None of them are good at JavaScript, right? That could be a technical limitation. Budget restrictions could be, for example, for technology, we're giving $50,000 a year for all our or everything that we're going to do on the back end, all our servers, all our security mechanisms, everything, whether our Azure, AWS, whatever we're doing, all the subscriptions we have for the whole year, we're paying $50,000. How do we manage that? There's also timeline pressures in terms of how we want to deliver, right? And then you have your regulatory demands. In the UK, we have different governing bodies for the different markets that we have. You also, in Nigeria, you also have different governing bodies for the popular ones are your CBNs, right? Your NITDA, right? In Nigeria. Also in the US, we have a lot of these different governing bodies, right? And then you have regulatory bodies for the whole world. Say for card systems, you have PCI TSS, right? So pretty much like when you analyze your constraints, you take those things down. So remember the DASER framework, right? We start with defining the problem. And number two, we analyze the constraints. Now, I'm giving all these examples so that when we get through our questions, right, we use these frameworks to try to approach this. Because remember, we're going into this like we're new to all of this, right? We want to be able to use a framework to be able to get to where we are going to, right? None of us are experts here. We want to get there, right? The next step is want to sketch the system. So let's highlight all the high level components of the system. Let's sketch what the data flows of the system would look like. What are those interactions with the data flows, right? So this can include things like your conceptual, your logical, your physical architecture layers, right? Next point is evaluate your trade-offs. What are your trade-offs? You would always have trade-offs, no matter how much money you have as a department, whatever your trade-offs are, but I grouped some of them. So you want to assess competing design choices, such as consistency versus your availability, right? Cost versus performance, or flexibility versus simplicity. You can group all of these into different things. And when we go on with this course, I'm going to break some of them down so that you see them. So when you look at flexibility versus simplicity, what is the critical part? where can you flex, what are those things you can flexibly put on there, and then how can we just simply just get there? Are we going to go with simplicity, or do we go with a bit of flexibility, right? And this framework sort of applies to everything that you're going to do within system design, right? You look at it with this framework and it just helps guide what you do. And then lastly, you want to refine for skill, right? You are sort of looking for future growth and resilience. Like when we define system design, we spoke about future proof.